Now from WATN, it's Local 24 This Week with Richard Ransom.
Is it Sunday already? Then it's time to get the real story behind the big stories, and we're glad you're with us for Local 24 This Week. I am Richard Ransom, and we have a great show to get to today. Residency roulette. Now that the Shelby County Sheriff is joining the Memphis Police and Fire Directors, saying they desperately need to basically do away with residency requirements for recruiting new police officers. I'll ask my panel what they think about that. The statute ruling, the state Supreme Court taking a pass on the case filed by the Sons of Confederate Veterans accusing Memphis of breaking the law when it removed 2 Confederate statues from 2 city parks. In so doing, the justices agreed with a lower court ruling that what Memphis did, I should say, was perfectly legal. And in statewide races, President Trump announcing he is going to stump in Mississippi, and in Tennessee, the race for U.S. Senate, the candidate not endorsed by Trump, showing he is serious about trying to pull off an upset. But first, our one-on-one segment today, and we're privileged to have with us today Shelby County Mayor Lee Harris. Thank you so much for being here.
Great to be here.
We always appreciate you being on the show. And we're just talking before we got started here. It's hard to believe you're already a year into your first term.
I have been in office for 13 months now. It has been a whirlwind.
How do you feel it's going?
I'm pretty excited about where we are. I think we've driven a conversation around issues that matter to working people. We said we'd come into office talking about living wages, talking about transit, talking about pre-K, talking about education. I think we've done that, and so I'm pretty satisfied that we're poised to do even more in the last 3 years of this term.
Let's talk about transit. I know you've had several public meetings about what you'd like to do with MATA. You have several more planned, and you started with a plan to charge a $145 fee for anyone who has 3 or more vehicles. Now you say we'll just charge that fee once for someone who has that. How are you going to make up that $10 million?
So the idea is to invest in transit. It's a conversation that's long overdue and something that we haven't had at the county before. I've put forward a plan to invest more than $10 million in public transit. If we can invest at the $10 million level or more, we can produce over 1 million new rides on public transit, which means we take over thousands and thousands of cars off the roads. That also means, Richard, that we remove thousands of tons of greenhouse gas emissions from our atmosphere. There's no more better time to do it than now. We just got an F based on some indicators from the American Lung Association. So we've got a chance to get people access to transportation, which gets them access to jobs and gets them out of poverty. We've got a chance to preserve our shared environment. We've got a chance to fill the 16,000 unfilled jobs that we currently have in this community. So, you know, I'm pretty bullish on transit. Like you said, I've been talking to the community for the last 5 or 6 weeks. We've done, you know, a number of town halls and community engagement events, and I'm going to do a number of additional events because I believe that we've got to have a conversation in this community once and for all about how we respond to our poverty levels.
Now, we keep hearing the magic number is 30 million to really make an impact with MATA. If you've only got 1/3 of that or plan to get to 1/3 of that, some are concerned that that will be too piecemeal and it really won't have the desired effect. Do you have something in the works for that other 20 million?
So I would love for us to invest the full 30 million, but we've got to get in this conversation. I'm already operating on the frontier here, as it were. I'm already talking about an issue that hasn't been talked about significantly at the county level. I'm already trying to highlight the plagues of poverty that have festered and persisted in our community for the last 50 years. I mean, we just got a report not too long ago that say there are 25,000 men and women that live in poverty in Shelby County this year that did not live in poverty last year. So I've got a lot on my plate right now. But yeah, we need to talk about the $10 million. That's the first phase of this conversation. If we can get that done, you better believe I'm going to come back and have a more fulsome conversation about other ways we can get people to jobs, get them around town, get them to visits with their family. There's a conversation that needs to be had in this community around light rail. The costs of light rail are even greater than the $30 million that you mentioned. I want to get there, but right now I got to wait till everybody can really let it sink in that transit is an issue, that poverty is an issue, that access to jobs are an issue, and we have got to be able to confront those issues.
You know, most of us never even get on a bus. And I think that's your biggest challenge, is convincing the average citizen who, when they see a city bus, chances are it's empty, they think it's just throwing taxpayer money away, and to put more money into it strikes them as pouring good money after bad, trying to improve a system that they see as worthless. How do you make that case? And I think it's a legitimate one, and I think the whole county needs responsibility for public transit in this community. That if we want people to work for a living, if we want people to have a job, they need to get to that job, and we live in a city that is more spread out than most, so the challenges are even greater.
So you're exactly right. We have about 20,000 riders every day, 7 million riders a year. So that may sound like a lot, but that's 2% of our population of 950,000. So I've got 2% of our population that takes a bus every day, and I've got 98% of our population that did not ride a bus today. And so making the case to that 98% is what we'll be doing over the next 5 or 6 months, which is what I told the county commission. We can't rush this. We're operating on the frontier. We need to make the case to the public. That involves really, 3 E's, as it were. You can boil it down to 3 E's. The environment. The idea is that our traffic congestion, our wear and tear on our infrastructure, our emissions and ozone, the pollutants in the air, the asthma issues that our kids suffer for, those issues are only going to worsen over time. And transit is part of the solution. Economy, we've got 16,000 open jobs in our community. Those open jobs are, for the vast majority of them, are not jobs that require a lot of skills. They require basic skills. The problem is, in many of those cases, is people can't get to those jobs. If we get people to those jobs, well, guess what? That brings us to the third issue of equity. We get to remediate and reduce poverty. Our poverty levels are way too high. We've got the largest population in our state, and a lot of great things going for us, but we also have one of the most impoverished populations in the state or in the country. And those numbers are going the wrong direction. Transit will help with a lot of those issues. So I've got to just get out there as much as possible. The times that I have been in front of the community, this issue has resonated with them. The vast majority of people that I have talked to agree that we should invest in transit. I agree social media is a whole nother place, but you can't let social media drive and dictate, leadership and the policy agenda.
You're preaching to the choir to me. I think that we absolutely need to spend more on public transit. One idea that's been floated around is that sales tax referendum that the city passed. There is a strong legal argument to be made that the county is entitled to half of that money. That would make up the $30 million that you need for public transit.
I like it. You're in the conversation, Richard. I like it. Come up with more ideas. I have said I'm open to any idea that is going to move people out of poverty and get the county in a position to make an investment in transit. So whether it is your idea, which is a sales tax referendum, and taking the resources for pensions and public safety, which is what
I'm not going to make any friends with firefighters.
I know, which is where that money is set up to go now, or my idea, which impacts 17% of our population, 83% of our population will see zero increase in terms of fees and taxes, but 100% of us will get the benefit of the reductions in poverty, the ability of people to move around and get access to jobs. That also, by the way, has a real impact on the #1 issue in our community, public safety and crime.
You did not make an endorsement in the mayor's race, city mayor's race, but I wanted to get your response to the results of the city election. And as a person who's a student of politics and a politician yourself, the vote that Jim Strickland received, what message did that send to you? What does that say about what Memphis voters wanted?
So I had my last election in 2018, and I don't really get into the business of even discussing my own elections, much less other elections that take place. The reason is simple, is because I've got a real job to do, and people don't want me to wax around the politics of the day. No one that voted for me, none of the residents in Shelby County care what I think about the politics of the day. What they care about is whether or not I have a plan to remediate poverty, whether I have a plan to do something about the blight in the neighborhoods, whether I have a plan to invest in public safety and education, the issues that they care about. They don't care about my opinion on that, and so I'm not going to pretend that it matters.
You did offer your opinion, though, on District 6 within the city election. David Clemens got your endorsement, and some people wondered if that was personal, because Edmund Ford Sr. obviously walked away with that, got a huge percentage of the vote there. Was it?
I live in District 6, and I believe two things, because I served on the Memphis City Council. I believe a couple things. One is I believe there's got to be more diversity on the Memphis City Council, and I believe we need more young people, and I think we need more people that have community service in their background on that City Council, and I believe we need more emphasis in our community on public safety. David Clemens, as you know, was someone who had a real service background, who was to become my council member where I live and where I will reside, and he was a police officer. And so I thought having that eye towards public safety, someone with experience in public safety on the Memphis City Council, would be a great thing. I continue to believe more focus on the Memphis City Council and in the County Commission on public safety issues with people who know about public safety is a good thing. I don't know if it had anything to do with the force. I didn't even think about that, but I do know David Clemens, and I do know that it would have been a great thing to have a police officer on that Memphis City Council.
Want to give you a quick time to talk about the reentry program that the reentry office is doing, trying to use vacant buildings and transform them into some transitional housing. I know that's something you feel very passionately about. How's that going, and what kind of progress is being made on that? So
we're working real hard to move the needle for thousands and thousands of families in our community. The only way you can do that is a few areas. It's education, it's transit, it's criminal justice reform. So criminal justice issues affects many, many more households than you could even imagine. And the best way to put people on the path to rehabilitation as they return after serving a stint in prison is to give them access to participation in the economy, that is to say a job, but also in many cases access to stable housing. Sometimes the threat of eviction and high rents is enough to send them right towards a life of crime and recidivism. That second crime tends to be more violent, tends to have a victim, and we all suffer from that. So as you said, we have bought a set of properties in the South Memphis area that we intend to use as transitional housing space for folks that are trying to get on the path back to citizenship and to rehabilitation.
I think it's a great idea. Thank you so much for being here. We appreciate it. We'll be back from the roundtable right after this.
The world is changing at a rate like never before. So, why isn't education? Raise your hand if you could use an education that's actually modern, actually affordable, and actually personal. If you're one of the 35 million Americans who hasn't finished your degree, well, Strayer's here to help. New bachelor students can even receive a brand new laptop.
The USA has lots of buried pipelines, so it's important to know the signs of a leak, like if you smell unusual odors or hear hissing, see bubbling earth or water, or dead or dying vegetation. Some signs are even harder to miss, like dirt being blown into the air, a frost ball in an open field, or a flame coming from the ground. If you see any of these signs, don't wait. Leave the area immediately and call 911 or your pipeline company.
Visit pipesafety.org. Brought to you by the Tennessee Gas Association.
The beauty, the kind we write songs about. Mountains rolling in like waves, rivers sculpting the landscape, fog so thick you can't tell where the world ends and heaven begins. Finally, a reason to put down our phones and experience a moment of complete awe that can only be made in Tennessee. Start planning at tnvacation.com. The music, the foot-tapping, head-bobbing, soul-saving kind. Country, blues, rock, and everything in between. Where it all started and never stopped. Heard on stages, porches, and street corners. You can't download it. You can only experience it. The soundtrack of America, made in Tennessee. Start planning at tnvacation.com.
You're watching Local 24 This Week with Richard Ransom.
Back with my roundtable now. Local 24 political analyst Otis Sanford is here, and Reverend Ken Whalen with New Olivet Worship Center. Let's talk about the residency requirement. Now you have the sheriff, the police director, and the fire director saying, hey, we need some help. We need to relax these residency requirements. They're pushing for folks to be able to live within a 2-hour drive of the city and be able to work for the city in a first responder capacity. What do you think about that, Otis?
Well, if we're talking about a 2-hour drive, that means theoretically somebody can live down in Water Valley, Mississippi, Charleston, Mississippi, over in Forest City, Arkansas, and come here and police our city. I understand the issues that Police Director Rollins has and also the Sheriff Floyd Bonner, but I'm not in favor of it. I think the voters decided that They relaxed it from just being in the city for the police department and said you could live in the county. I don't think that's too much to ask. You asked me the other night, should we not just give give a little deference to the police and the sheriff? Under ordinary circumstances, maybe so, but this is not a private sector job. This is a public sector job. These people would be patrolling our streets, making decisions about who to arrest and who to not arrest, and using their instincts and all of that. I just think that residency helps make a police officer a better police officer.
But the public is clamoring for more police officers.
Well, and I don't agree with it. I'm with Otis on that, but I support it 100%. Why? Because it is what it is in Memphis and Shelby County. We are not, you're not going to be surprised at my position on this, we are not producing enough graduates, high school graduates, who can qualify to be law enforcement officers in the city of Memphis. From an employer standpoint, from the sheriff's standpoint, and from the police director's standpoint, they've got to hire somebody. We've got to be in a position as a city where we can at least have a complement of police officers who are qualified educationally and experientially to police our streets. Now, in a best case scenario, we'd have so many people walking the streets of Orange Mound and North Memphis and Bearwater who grew up in our schools and in our neighborhoods and in our communities, whom the community members know and who they trust and who would police their communities. That is not the case, Richard, and we're at a point where it is what it is, and we better do something. And, you know, I personally, I've talked to the sheriff many times about this, and also to Director Rollins. They don't want to have to hire outside of Memphis, but they are forced to do it because of the level of crime in this city.
Basically, Otis, we're talking about DeSoto County, probably. I don't know that people are going to drive 4 hours a day to go back and forth to work.
Well, but they have the opportunity to. Then make it the metro area. Make it DeSoto County, Crittenden County, Fayette County. Don't say 2 hours drive, because a 2-hour drive is down in Water Valley.
True.
But we have people in Bartlett. We have people in Germantown, Collierville, Arlington. Those folks are out there. They're going to school too. So let's broaden the pie here. Also, go somewhere and recruit people. Give them incentives to live here in Shelby County and be police officers and sheriff deputies. Again, there are some innovative ways to do this without allowing police officers patrolling your street, Ken, who live an hour and a half away, have no vested interest in the community, but are policing it, arresting your children, and doing those kinds of things.
There's so much to say about it. Listen, Otis, it'd be great if we could go somewhere and recruit those people, but where is the somewhere we'd go? Orange Man, listen, man, the Shelby County owns 70% of the blighted properties in Orange Mound. 70%. If we gave away all of those houses to people to please come in, live here free, and be a police officer, we still couldn't find them inside the city.
But Ken, we have companies have job fairs all the time,
and they can't fill them.
Well,
they can't fill the jobs. Ask anybody at FedEx, ask anybody in national paper what they come up with when they do a job fair on site inside the city limits. Ask them if they can get enough. Ask them if they can get enough in the suburbs. Ask them if they can get enough employees to meet the need.
I'm talking about going out of state.
FedEx has 500 jobs right now they can't fill, Otis.
Well,
for sure. Now,
we don't agree on this, Richard.
It's either that or bring in the National Guard. People won't man the National Guard.
There are thousands of jobs right now that cannot be filled.
Absolutely.
Looking for college graduates and people who are trained or have a certain skill set, and we can't fill those.
Well, we still have a referee. Even if it goes through the city council and county commission, it still has to be on a ballot. There has to be a referendum because the voters have spoken, and we'll see what happens down the road.
All right, let me talk about the statues. We know what happened with the state Supreme Court this week, so now the case that becomes active is what to do about the actual remains, I should say, of Confederate General Nathan Bedford Forrest and his wife. They were moved from Elmwood Cemetery to this spot right here at Health Sciences Park, setting up quite a legal battle, apparently, because both sides really have a strong legal argument to make about whether they have control over those remains. There really are saying that the only way where this is going to get resolved is out of court, if somehow both sides can come to some sort of agreement. How do you think this is going to end up? Is this going to be a lengthy court battle, or
we're going to disagree on this one too?
Well, maybe not. Listen, man, the court has spoken. The judge has spoken. Although I disagree with removing the remains, that's a done deal now. The statutes, yeah. It is what it is. I just think that the descendants of the people whose remain, they got to take care of the remains, that they can resolve it amicably, come out of the courts. I think that people, reasonable people, can come up with some kind of satisfactory solution as to what to do with some bones and the statues.
Well, we do agree, man, and that's surprise, 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 because I do hope that they can settle us out of court. We have a will that I believe exists from Nathan Bedford Forrest that says I want to be buried in Elmwood Cemetery with my brethren whom I fought with. If that's the case, they never should have taken them out of there in the first place. They did it, I think, as a matter of defiance against desegregation, or whatever you want to call it, back in 1905. Let's have an agreement. Hope the family agrees to it. Take them back to Elmwood where they can rest in final peace.
I am much more interested in what we're going to do with the site that they took them from. I'm very interested to see what the plans are that Green Space has, whatever the name of the group is, right, and whether or not they're going to transform it into an equally passionate display of what Memphis could be, rather than this morbid looking back to what Confederacy used to be. I think I'm looking forward to something very positive.
I am too, and I'm hearing that they're going to be working with Downtown Commission, the River Parks Partnership, and there are going to be some other entities that will be working with them to do just that. That's what I'm hearing.
And if Tammy Sawyer and if those people who are protesting so much and who are responsible, along with Walter Bailey and others, for having the statues removed, if they're not involved in the discussions as to what's going to happen with that site, we're going to have a whole nother cycle of protests, and we should, because the people whose descendants, whose ancestors were slain by Nathan Bedford Forrest and those others, have a right. The descendants have a right to have a say into their public space.
I don't disagree with that.
All right, very good. We'll leave it there when we come back to talk about a couple of statewide races right after this.
Cigna knows you're more than just a number. That's why Cigna Medicare Advantage treats you like a whole person, body and mind, for a cost that makes sense for you. Start enjoying more coverage for less. Call 1-855-552-0688. With Cigna, you get medical, dental, vision, and prescriptions in one plan. A team of doctors for your overall health, and healthy living programs to save you money. Plus, no monthly premium and only a $5 specialist copay. Medicare annual enrollment is now. Make sure you have the right plan for the right price. Call now to get your free Medicare Advantage guide and learn how to get a complete plan that fits your budget. Call 1-855-552-0688. That's 1-855-552-0688. Or visit GetCignaMedicare.com. Cigna, together all the way.
Get your gun now and saddle up Penelope. It's Western Trading Days at Sunrise Buick GMC. Old-time trading prices on over 700 new Buicks and GMC trucks. And the Sunrise Used Car Corral has over 150 in stock. Branch managers have been told to cut prices to the bone. And remember, you can bring your car to Sunrise Service no matter where you bought it. If you're a good person with bad credit, SunriseMemphis.com will help put your brand on one of these little fillies. Free hot dogs and Cokes at the Chuck Wagon. Western Trading Days going on now at all 3 Sunrise locations. We make it fun to buy a car again.
A drunk driver hit us head on. I am so glad that one of my family members told me to call the Reeves Law Firm. The jury awarded us $1.8 million.
If you or a loved one have been seriously injured, call us immediately. Let us be your voice.
You're watching Local 24 This Week with Richard Ransom.
You have 2 Republicans fighting to be the nominee for the U.S. Senate race to replace Lamar Alexander, and Dr. Manny Sethi, who is not the one endorsed by Donald Trump, comes out with a 1-minute ad that doesn't address Bill Hagerty, who is the one who was endorsed by Trump. Let's watch this ad, and I want to get your take on the other side.
My husband and I were young doctors in India who wanted to come to America. We followed the law. immigrated legally, we waited 7 years. We were country doctors in Tennessee for 25 years. I delivered thousands of babies and work hard to be a good citizen. So why do others get to break the law, get benefits, and if you dare say that's wrong, you are called racist? My son Manny is a Tennessee surgeon. He's now running for the U.S. Senate, and he knows this is wrong.
We're going to have an illegal immigrant invasion if Republicans don't win in 2020. The Democrats are going to give this country away. That's why I'm running. Let them try to call me a racist. I'm Dr. Manny Sethi, and I approve this message.
That one has me speechless. I've never seen an ad like that.
Well, me either. And I think it's extremely effective, especially for Tennessee, especially for that issue, which is pretty hot in Tennessee. It'll play extremely well in places like Union City and Ocoee County and Rutherford County and even Williamson County. It is a really good conservative Republican ad.
20 seconds.
There's no way in the world that man is going to win. Man, please.
Oh, I know he won't win, but we're not talking about that. We're talking about the ad.
Commercial. Let me say that. Okay. As a Democrat, I'd vote for it.
But it doesn't move the needle.
No.
Right.
It's still a good ad.
Let's talk about the other race real quick. Of course, one of the voters are going to be heading to the polls in early November. In early November, November 1st, in fact, Donald Trump is going to be coming to Tupelo to stump for Tate Reeves, the lieutenant governor, the Republican in that race. This one's gotten nasty, too. The commercials are just all over the place.
They really are.
Tearing each other apart. Does the Trump visit say to you that maybe the Republicans in some trouble here or not?
I think that, to me, I think it's just some insurance at the very end. Trump will rally the crowd, and I think it will help to send Tate Reeves over the top.
I don't think it's necessary for Trump to come, but I think it'll help Trump more than it'll help the person he's campaigning for. It'll just expose him more in Mississippi and in the South and among his supporters in Memphis. I think it's a good move for him.
Okay, We'll leave it there. We'll take a break. We'll be right back.
If you've been seriously injured at work, let Nahon Saharovich and Trotz help get your benefits started right away. At Team NST, we know the workers' comp laws to help you get more.
NST is the way to go. Call 683-7000.
At St. Francis Hospital, a community built on care is built on the way we listen, the way we treat. Because we know that healing is more than medicine. It's the way we care for others. We monitor numbers, but never treat him like one. With the highest respect for technology, we add compassion and encouragement, which may be the best medicine of all.
The most spectacular event of the year is back for 7 Nights of Fright. Join us for Le Bonheur Zoo Boo, presented by Kroger, with over 25 frighteningly fun activities for ghosts and goblins of all ages. Get your advance tickets at memphiszoo.org/zooboo.
The family vacation. The ones you don't just remember, but replay over and over again. When your heart skipped a beat, soul filled with melody, and eyes open to the wonders of the world. A trip that not only defines a summer, but defines a family. It's a reunion that can only be made in Tennessee. Start planning at tnvacation.com.
If you've got a yard, you may plan on digging in it, like to build an addition, put in a pool, or bury your pirate booty. But you should know that throughout the country, there may be pipelines buried underground, and if you hit one, you've got trouble. Sorry. So before you dig, call 811 to have any buried pipelines located and marked at no charge.
Call your local natural gas utility or visit pipesafety.org. Brought to you by the Tennessee Gas Association.
That's it for us. My thanks to Otis and Reverend Ken for being here, and my thanks to you as well. We'll see you next time for Local 24 this week.